Hi everyone, I'm Rachel.
And I'm Fiona.
So we're back, episode number 3. Who would have thought, right? Okay, so as you can hear, I'm a little bit, raspy and husky and sound like I've smoked a pack of cigarettes a day for the last 20 years. So me getting a little bit sick this week brought up the topic of self-care. And I had my older children home with me, and I was taken care of by one of the older kids, whereas I normally just keep pushing through, getting up, doing and whatever. And she's like, no, stay in bed. She made me breakfast in bed, everything. And it felt wrong. It felt so bad. And that was when, Fee and I decided, maybe we should talk about self-care and what that looks like for everyone. So hence that's what we're going to be talking about today. Did you want to say anything, Fee?
No, I just think this is like a really relevant topic about the self-care and the blocks to self-care. And as we were sort of talking about when we were coming up with the topic,
Yeah.
like a lot of this is self-imposed, like conditioning around self-care and allowing others to take care of us. So yeah, I just excited to have a chat about it, Rach.
I know, right? And this is an extension. I did a talk for a wellbeing talk actually 2 weeks ago for some ladies, and this theme's coming up. And to be totally honest, this is the theme of why I started baking candles. This is how I started my Sacred Space kit. I could see that women around us weren't, or women around me, weren't really making time for themselves to sit and reflect on what was working in their life and what wasn't. Okay. And that is taking care of yourself by allowing yourself just to process everything that's happening in your life. And that's how, yeah.
And a lot of that thing too, Rach, is as women, like a lot of our self-worth is in the doing rather than just the being. So it's like we have to we in our heads, we're programmed that we need to get X, Y, and Z done, and there's never enough time for us just to sit down. And so a lot of times we don't allow that space just to sit and really tap into that inner awareness.
Oh, for sure, for sure. And, as women, our instinct is to nurture, so we're so busy nurturing everyone else, and we're conditioned that that's our role. Our role is to look after everyone, the kids, the partner, the house, the this, the that. And then, all these other things become this, in front of us for priority that we don't ever really get comfortable. It takes a lot of practice to get comfortable with prioritizing ourselves. Now, there's a payoff with not prioritizing ourselves. Don't worry, I can't talk either.
You're doing great.
And I made a couple of notes, and it was like it's a coping mechanism that we use for not dealing with our own emotions or feelings. When we're something happens and we instinctively make sure everyone else is okay, their emotional needs and feelings have been met, and yet we don't really do the same for ourselves. So that can be a way of coping.
That's really, like, just to jump in there, Rach, that's
Yeah.
not something that's ever role model to us though either.
No.
Like I know my mum never stopped. Like the women around me were always so busy all the time. So it's not something that's really role model to us as women either.
No, and my mum being my role model, she's quite stoic because her dad was he was in the Second World War. So emotions and things like that were something that weren't freely sort of shown, even tears. So and then along comes Rach, who, is this like empath to the max, where, I just take on everyone else's feelings. I'm like, oh my God, what's wrong? Why am I crying again? Because that's just how it is for me. But that was always something I felt bad about because, everyone around me was so controlled emotionally. And I thought, I'm broken. Like, seriously, I'm so broken. It's not funny. So then I started to suppress a lot of stuff. And And that's what happens when we're shown a certain way. That's we then conditioned to be that way.
We're taught to intellectualize our feelings too, aren't we? It's not, you know, if we feel angry or we feel sad or you're feeling all this emotion, Rach, automatically you go to your head and go, you know, this is not good. I need to like redirect my thoughts rather than just dropping into the body and going, oh, what am I feeling? Let me just sit with that. And it's so interesting. The moment we feel our feelings, they dissipate. They just move through us. They don't get stuck. When we intellectualize our feelings, they just get stuck in our body, and that's where it can turn into physical elements. Whereas when we're allow ourselves just to drop in and go, oof, what am I feeling? And just really sit with that emotion, it doesn't get stuck. It just moves through us.
And they say it only takes 90 seconds for us to really feel the emotion. I mean, it can take a little bit longer, but for us just to go, okay, what am I feeling? I think once we become conscious of it, but that's a learned practice too, because, you know, we're not really modeled a way of, you know, feeling the feelings.
I like the analogy of like a garden bed.
Yeah.
So, you know, if weeds are feelings, and we go and deal with those weeds individually and we feel the feelings, or do we just intellectualize it and stick a bit of manure over the top and hope it goes away? Like, they're going to come back. It's going to come back, and they're going to come back stronger. So that's where we have to like do the work and deal with those emotions and feel them as they pop up.
That's actually it's a different analogy, but I like it. Another thing about, you know, us as women putting other people first, it could be the way we actually show love and affection. So if you're, you know, for me in the scientific hand analysis world, if you're a nurturing heartline, like a big heart, then it's going to always be about, you know, creating the experience for other people. So, you know, it could be that you're like, well, okay, you just have to understand how you're designed to do life, because it's very easy for us then to go, oh, I'm not allowed to put other people first. Like I've got to do it for me, and that just doesn't feel right. And so the more we know about ourselves and how we are actually designed to, you know, do life, then the less conflicting it's going to all be.
Then, Rach, with that, you're saying that acts of service are like your love language. That's how you show those around you that,
And but you know that there's a fine line between that acts of service and you know, obviously not prioritizing yourself. But in saying that, we have to then get into the mindset of, okay, you know, how would I treat someone else? Would I, you know, would I do that to them? Would I dismiss how they're feeling? Would I do, you know, and then go, no, okay. So then you actually have to treat yourself in that way.
And you know what? I just got to jump in there too, Rach. Oh, something that's become very is like when you become aware of your thoughts. So when you do your meditation and you become very aware of that unconscious voice in the back of your head that talks a lot, and you think the way you speak to yourself at times, like you would never speak to anyone the way you would, you know, whether it's you telling yourself you're not good enough or whatever, but to become really aware of that voice, and that goes back into, you know, you wouldn't treat anyone else the way you treat yourself at times. And as far as like love language, acts of service, like that's great, but it's about bringing that balance into play, where it's, you know, bringing that, it's like the judgment card that we had last week. It's like bringing the balance in, filling your cup up whilst also, so it's overflowing to serve all those people around you. Definitely. 2 cups. Energy.
Exactly right. And that's the thing, you know, it's all about becoming conscious of ourselves. You know, the more we are conscious of something, then the easier it is to make informed decisions about anything. And quite often I'm going to refer to hand analysis, because, you know, that's where I hang out. But within hand analysis, we've got the student path, which is where we learn. okay, and the master path, which is what we, strive for. And we spend so much time on the student path because it's just that automatic reaction. There's no thought process. We just do something, and that's, and it's not until we become conscious of our behavior or what triggers a behavior that we can then go, okay, that hasn't been serving me. What can I do different? But without the consciousness, we can't make those changes.
I don't know the percent, Rach, but it's huge. It's like 80 or 90% of what we do is coming from that unconscious place, that unconscious pattern that we're not aware of. So that's where it's really important. And Eckhart Tolle talks about it in New Earth, that we become the conscious observers of our life and really start to see those patterns. Exactly. And each time we're able to redirect or interrupt those neural pathways, that's where, that's a bit of Joe Dispenza in there as well, but we're able to like make those little changes. And those changes don't have to be massive initially, but if you just do like the little tiny changes over a period of time, it can be a huge change.
And you'll start the more you're in it, the more conscious you become. It'll then be, instead of going, quite often it's like you're in the middle of the behavior, you're reacting to something, and then you're like, oh shit, this is whatever. Okay.
Yeah.
But the thing is, the more aware you become of it, then it takes you back to the beginning. And instead of like, okay, I'm not going to react to this now, I'm going to go down this path because that reacting hasn't served me. But the automatic behavior is where we learn. There comes a point where we go, that's just not working out for me anymore, and that's the first thing of like, oh, okay, is there another way of doing it? How can I do it different? And then that's just that snowball of your consciousness, basically.
And I think there too, Rach, is a big part of my patterning is when you identify some of that behavior. You don't need to turn it on yourself again and give it another reason to be hard on yourself. So to really treat yourself with the gentleness, treat yourself like that 5-year-old inner child. Rather than going, oh my gosh, like you were so stupid, I can't believe, look at this. Look, this has been a coping mechanism. Like this is not working for you anymore, but what can we do to move forward? So being really gentle with yourself as you identify it, not use it as another reason to be hard on yourself or
for sure. So what would be your number one tip for self-care? What do you believe is your number one tip? Because it's obviously going to be different for everyone. But, if someone hasn't really found their thing, sometimes it's really good to listen to what other people do and what they feel they could not live without.
So for my tip with human design, it's listening to my strategy and authority. So I'm my authority is sacral. So I get so it's tapping into the wisdom of your body. And once you know your human design, it's like, okay, so for me, it's just really tapping into my sacral. And if my sacral is going, it's I'm thinking I need to do this, 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 and this, and my sacral is just like, no, then for me, it's really about prioritizing. It's doing things differently. So for instance, I used to, like with housework or doing the bathrooms, rather than having this strict structure of it needs to be done on a certain day, it's like it just needs to be done each week. And if my sacral's lit up to do it at 5:30 one morning or 6 o'clock at night, it doesn't really matter. It's like just taking that conditioning about it has to be done on a certain day at a certain time. It's like just really tapping into the sacral and listening to the wisdom of the body. So perfect. And it's amazing. You seem to be able to get so much more done when you do.
That's really good.
With the balance, with bringing that balance of having enough time for yourself and for others.
Well, my number one thing is actually understanding your cycle. For us as women, okay, so whether it be, and if you're no longer bleeding, then it's your energy cycle, because we're cyclic, you know, we're like the moon. So the more we can really tap into, you know, the days, the weeks that we do have energy and utilize them, as opposed to the ones where, you know, we feel a bit flatter and, you know, don't really feel like doing too much or don't really want to hang out with other people. The more we tap into that cycle and understanding that about ourselves, I just believe that that is a game changer, because we are so much more empathetic to ourselves. We're like, okay, I know it's coming up to this part of the month and I know I'm not going to have a lot of energy. So I'm just going to not beat myself up when all I want to do is lay on the lounge and watch trashy TV or, you know, whatever it is. So the more we understand what our body needs and the cycle that is involved with that, then I believe that that in itself is a game changer.
It's giving yourself permission to
Yeah.
take it easy, or, you know, and when you know where you're up to, like, you know, you can plan your whole month around that, Rach, whether it's how you exercise, how you socialize, but and that also really, like I was saying, it just gets you tapped right back into that wisdom of your body and those cycles.
1,000,000,000%. And not only that, it helps you communicate where you're at. Because once you're aware of it, and you can just go to your partner or your kids or whatever and go, you know what? This is mummy's week where she just is a monster, you know, and don't look at me, don't talk to me, just leave me alone type of thing. But, you know, when you're aware, you can then communicate that with others. But when we're not aware, we're just reactive and we just bite everyone's head off. So, you know, there's so much value in understanding how we individually work, or, you know, how we play out, that, you know, I just believe that to me, that's the number one thing.
Yeah, because we are conditioned and programmed to work within that masculine model of,
you
know, working 9 to 5 and not and that's great for men, because men have that whole cycle during the day, whereas women, we have that 28, you know, lunar cycle. So
that's right, exactly right. So that's our tip. So my tip was, you know, tuning into the cycle of your energy, or your period, or whatever you want to call it, menstruation. And Fiona's is tapping into the body, which in hindsight are
the same.
One and the same.
A different way of saying the same thing, really, right? Isn't it?
Yeah. Just learning to listen to your body and what it's communicating to you, I suppose, is the overall picture there. So
and I think both of us have said give yourself permission to do, you know, to have that time out if you need it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So Fiona, did you have your cards with you today?
I do have my cards. We're going to pull some cards.
I would love
Let's see what wants to come out.
I'm just having a little bit of my lem sip.
I've had heaps jump out here.
Interesting.
Oh, Rachael. I'm going to go with these 3 because I think they're very relevant. Actually, no, I'm not. Give me 2 secs.
You've got the floor, girlfriend. You do it.
Probably should do this before we get on, Rach.
You know what? I like it that we you do it during, because it's really picking up on the energy of our conversation. Because sometimes our conversations can go in different directions to what we think they're going to go.
Yeah.
So I love that it's in that moment and in that energy. Yeah.
So, you know how last week I said that there's nothing synchronistic about these cards, that, you know, you can put 2 card back and then it will jump out. Well, I've actually had 2 cards that fell out on the floor, shuffled, and I've got 2 of the same cards, but one's different.
Okay.
So I feel like obviously these 2 cards wanted to come up, and it's interesting because the other one was one that I'm like, I'm not sure whether that relates. So interesting. So we've got the Knight of Cups. So interesting. The Knight of Cups is moving forward, but being driven by your intuition. So I feel like that's really relevant with the wisdom of our body. And then we've got the Hierophant, and I just love this card, and this can be read differently, but I'm going to read this as that we are our own gurus. So as much as the structures that we've been put in, the conditioning, the programming, it's really important that we're able to have that awareness and realize that we are our own gurus. It's about tapping in and seeing what's right for you, because we're all individual, and individually we work beautifully. And then we have the Ace of Swords. So she's saying, you know, there's this shift in awareness. So possibly some of the stuff we haven't, and obviously whatever Rach and I say, take it or leave it. Like if it resonates, take it, and if it leave it, let's go, leave it, let it go. But can't talk. But I feel like she's saying, you know, just sit with these new ideas, these new concepts. You know, we have to let certain things go to allow others in. So this is all about those shifts and changing of new awarenesses. So
yeah, I like that. Can you just show me the first card again? Just hold it up.
the Nine of Cups. Yeah. So it's been really starting something from that intuitive place, moving forward with the intuition.
You know what? So I'm just going to go with my own intuition here. See how he's got flowers? It's almost like, you know, courting yourself or treating yourself, you know, with that love, that self-respect. Now, the next, and, you know, it's like be your own knight in shining armor, basically.
And so what about this one, Rach?
Okay, and hold the other one up as well next to it. They've got staircases. They're taking you to a higher consciousness, or to, you know, an evolved way of doing things.
Absolutely. There's up leveling and shifting. So
sure.
Yeah, absolutely. But also too, I think when we shift in awareness, Rach, we have to sort of let certain things go as well. So
1,000,000,000% we have to let them drop off. And it's I don't know if you've ever seen that meme where someone's holding on tight, you know, to something, and they just really don't know what's, you know, if they just let go, what the outcome's going to be. And it's like they're holding on to something that's really quite negative, and yet down the bottom is like, you know, it's all good down here. So,
yeah. And I think too, like being your own guru, but he's almost saying, you know, how do you know whether what you need to move forward with and what you need to let go? Well, you need to tap into the wisdom of your body and really trust that intuition. And it's interesting because the other card that I wasn't sure about was the Eight of Cups, which is all about moving in a new direction, leaving behind the old. But the thing is with the Eight of Cups is you don't know what the new direction looks like yet, but you have to just trust with your intuition that it's unfolding.
Who knows what the new direction ever is, seriously. And that was actually something else we thought we might talk about today was, you know, being uncomfortable in that in the stillness of it all. So you know, the unknown, because quite often in that self-care, you know, we're like you said a little bit earlier, it's all about the doing. However, you know, we have to, it's all balance, it's all that yin and yang, where we have to be comfortable with the stillness, because we're not. We just think, oh, you know, got to get up and do this, got to go and do that, you know, instead of just like you and I have like these days where we don't do much at all.
But then there's days when you're sitting in your creative genius where you, but I've learned too, Rach, the days where you push yourself, where you're not feeling, you just can't seem, it's like running through mud. You just don't seem to achieve a lot. Whereas the days, but this is the Eight of Cups. See how she's like burning the old, she's heading toward the new. She really doesn't know what it looks like.
Yeah.
But she's trusting that deep intuition that she's being guided in the right direction, because it's all looking good. There's, you know, it's a horizon. So I hope that resonates.
I think it doesn't matter, you know, what cards, you know, came out, because obviously they were meant to be. And we pretty much got that message from, you know, all of them that came out. But yeah, so that is the thing, you know, self-care is really important. So it's also to if you prioritize that in your life and you haven't been, okay, then that's a shift in awareness. That's a shift in consciousness. And when we prioritize our own self-care, everyone benefits, because, you know, it's where our own self-worth, the people around us are getting the, you know, the full cup version of us instead of the resentful one. So it's just everyone benefits when we practice our own self-care.
Yeah. And like those little shifts don't have to be a lot, Rach, either. It could just be verbalizing, I just need 10 minutes, or I'm just going to read my book for 15 minutes. I'm going to sit down and meditate. It's just, it can just start with little steps like that. And the more you listen and tap in and you see the benefits that come from from that self-care, it far outweighs ignoring, taking the time out for yourself.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah. And that could be going to the gym, it could be reading your book, it could be meditating, going for a walk, whatever it looks like for you.
Yeah.
And go for a hike. Yeah.
I would love for anyone listening to leave in the comments what they do for self-care, because by sharing what we do, like, it doesn't work for everyone, but by sharing what we do, it just gives other people ideas on what they can do. You know, quite often people go, oh, meditation's not for me. I'm one of them. Or, you know, journaling or this or that, but I should be doing this or I should be doing that. And the should is just putting that pressure on yourself, something that works for someone else. But the idea is for us to find what works for us. You know, it may be getting our hair done regularly. It may be getting nails done, something that makes us feel good about ourselves and we prioritize in our life. It doesn't have to look like meditation. It doesn't have to look like journaling, or it doesn't have to look like, you know, going for a wildlife park walk or whatever. I mean, you know, I'm not up for most of those things. That's not me.
I did a reading for someone. I got the Four of Swords, which is all about that, like taking the time out just to nurture and you know, you've done the healing. It's now time just to sort of consolidate that healing and embody the healing. It's like you just need to take some time out or whatever that looks like for you. And for her, it was like, well, I'm going hiking and I'm leaving my phone behind. So that wouldn't be my idea of like self-healing, but that was her. So it's really about just trusting what's right for you. And
exactly.
Yeah.
And no one else can tell us what's right for us, but we have to explore the possibilities of what is right for us, because unless we try things, we just don't know. And you know, there's so many different ways to journal. You know, as there are so many different ways to meditate. You just may not have come across the right version for you. So yeah, we can't just disregard stuff. It's just about play, I think, too. Back to play.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
All
yeah.
right.
And that, okay.
Did you want to say something else?
No, I think
you're good.
We'll leave it at that. Yes.
All right, I'm good. Thanks for tuning in and listening to me with this crazy voice. And hopefully I'm better next week. I'll practice a little bit of self-care. And yeah, thanks for tuning in and listening to Rach and Fi Unplugged.
Bye, guys.
Bye.